Picture this: you are at home watching a funny TV serial with all of your family members, and suddenly there is that one bit of joke which makes the room go away with explosive laughter. How does that feel? It feels really funny, isn't it? And laughter again is like an endemic. When someone laughs, we laugh with them. Yes. So let's understand what is the science behind why do we laugh. Do you know why we laugh when others laugh? And it somehow, passes on to each one of us in the room. So there are psychologists and neuroscientists and philosophers all trying to understand humor. Can you just imagine that, right? And researchers really do not fully understand which aspect of a joke or a situation makes it seem funny. Yes, we have umpteen varieties of or subtopics of stand up comedy that we have been doing since the past few weeks. And really, when it comes to laughter, it works for some and it doesn't work for some, right? So let me tell you that Sir Sigmund Freud, he says that there could be explosive laughter or there could be a sly smile. So that's what humor is all about, isn't it? And he formulated one of the best versions of why people laugh, and that was released in the 18th century. And he said that laughter really allows people to let off steam and also release pent up nervous energy, right? So in some aspects that is really true. We all believe that laughter is a pure stress buster and it is really good for health. So if you want to learn this art of making people laugh, then do join me in today's live and let us explore one another form of stand-up comedy which can make people laugh their heads off. Yes, I am Sapna Mahadevan, your host for this wonderful evening here, and I am getting some messages here in the chat box. I'm going to get to you really quick, but let me just tell you that we are here with another vertical of the stand-up comedy, segment, and we are going to have a lot of activities that we have planned specially for our dear viewers. Yes, so do stay tuned in here with me and let us explore this stand-up comedy vertical with a lot of fun elements as well. So yes, thanks a lot for all the comments that I am getting here. Hellos and waves and highs. Thanks a lot. Good evening to you too, Prisha. Richa, thanks a lot for your message. Okay, thanks for joining the live, Varun. We have some other handles join here. And yes, with that bit of energy, let me get going into our episode. Here it is: stand out at stand up comedy, explore yourself at a comic level. So that's what we are going to do today. And let's look at what are the different segments that we have put up in today's episode, right? So, coming up, let me show you. We have various scenarios and examples to make you understand this one subtopic of stand-up comedy. And today what we are doing is called anecdotal comedy, right? So when we get to those slides, I would explain to you what anecdotal comedy is all about. And for now, let us understand that we have a lot of fun segments. There is Decipher the EDM. There are some synonymous words as well. Identify the comedian, name the characters, some icebreaker questions to keep you entertained. There is also a crossword segment towards the fag end of the episode. And in today's episode, the main agenda would be essentials on how we can be writing an anecdotal comedy and also how we can be performing one, right? So let's move ahead with the first segment for the day, which is guess the character. And I am going to show you some characters here on the screen. These are really popular movie or cartoon characters, and you can give me the answers in the chat box real quick because time is of essence here, right? So here is the first picture that we have. Guess the character. Who is this character? This character is really from a popular movie, and of course a fictional character. Do let me know the name of this character and also if you know the movie. I'm going to wait for a few seconds for the answers. Don't see any answers coming up here. Um, can you make out from that picture who that character is? Of course, yes, it is J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter. And let me name the character for you. There he is, Neville Longbottom, a fictional character in J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series. And he's also described as one of the pure blood wizard, right? So that was the first character that we had. And let's move ahead to the next one. This is going to be the last one for the day, again from a very popular children's movie. And who is this fictional character? Quickly in the chat box, the one that went by was Neville Longbottom, and the one that I'm showing you right now, the picture that I'm showing right now, is the one that you need to guess. Name this character from a very popular children's movie, which also had a lot of series, and it was one of the beloved movies. Yes. So, any answers coming up here in the chat box? There is a question mark and a think emoji, and I think I should reveal the answer here. That was quite easy. Okay, so let me give that to you. That little boy, Charlie Bucket, from the main protagonist in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, right? Now, he is the protagonist who finds the fifth Willy Wonka golden ticket and is the only child who is not rotten, right? And this particular fictional character was played by Freddie Highmore, right? So thanks a lot for attempting and guessing the answers to this Guess the Character segment. And with that, I'm going to move ahead quickly to the next segment. And here it is. We have what is stand up comedy, right? So, once again, for all the unversed people in my audience here, let me tell you stand up comedy is a performance where comedians they go live on the stage and perform, of course, in front of a live audience, wanting to make them laugh in stitches. Yes. So that's what the aim is. So they have one liners or jokes or maybe punchlines that they insert into their comedy routine and try to gather those laughs from the audience, right? Now, let me tell you, it is really a tough nut to crack. And with this kind of performing art, the comedian or the comic, they already get to know how they are faring, because if they get a laugh, that to 4 to 6 laughs a minute, then they are a success. Yes. So average stand-up comedy show gets 4 to 6 laughs a minute from the audience, and of course you're going to get the laugh only if the bit or the joke was good enough, right? So that's what stand-up comedy is all about, really gaining popularity these days. And it's one of the emerging lucrative career options as well. So if you have a funny bone in you, then you can always learn the techniques, the tricks of stand-up comedy, how you can be writing comedy routines for your act. Yes, and all this and more is going to be covered in today's episode, right? But we're going to cover only one subtopic for the day, which is like in stand-up comedy, there are, as I told you in the starting, there are umpteen, forms of stand-up comedy that can be done, from alternate comedy, from to slapstick, maybe to wry humor, or maybe something which is really witty and only in the form of expressions or maybe human behavior. Yes, and today one of the topics that we are going to explore is anecdotal comedy, right? So let me tell you that anecdotal comedy was named after the word anecdote, which stems from the Greek term meaning unpublished, and it refers to comic personal stories that may be true or maybe partly true, and to some extent it could be exaggerated even, right? So that is what anecdotal comedy is all about, and meaning is really very simple, right? So composed of anecdotes, that is real life incidents, and we all have experienced something or the other in our life which is funny. Yes, and we tend to talk about that to our social group whenever we meet, right? So what the comedians do here is, instead of talking about that in their social groups, they take these jokes a little further ahead, embellish them with maybe exaggeration and incite a little more humor into it, and they deliver all of these personal stories by way of humor to the public or to the audience who are watching the act, right? So these anecdotes which are used in anecdotal comedy, they may be wholly or partially real, but of course are humorous and comedic in nature. And that is what makes open mic comedy so awesome, right? You hear from the comedian's perspective, you get a gist or a little peek into their own personal life, and something which was so very funny, which makes you laugh, right? Now let me also tell you that famous comedians whom you can maybe Google to learn about anecdotal comedy could be Louis CK and Russell Peters. And from the Indian bunch of stand up comedians, you can always look out for the work of Zakir Khan or Biswa Kalyan. Yes. So these are famous personalities in the stand up comedy world. And now that we know what anecdotal comedy is all about, let us move ahead to the next segment. And here it is. So now we are going to learn about how we can write anecdotal comedy with the way of examples. So let me tell you that whenever we are out for a party, or we are meeting up friends, or maybe in our personal group of maybe neighbors or our near and dear ones, we naturally rattle off one of the same five stories that we have been telling them for years, right? Why we do that is because that is something that has become our forte, something that happened with us which was so very funny, and it really gets the laugh all the time. And that's why, because it is tried and tested, we tend to talk about it often and often and often again, right? So that's how it becomes the punchline. And even without noticing or without you realizing it, maybe you have built a stand-up comedy bit that's taken years to refine, right? So the truth is that we all have funny anecdotes, and if you don't think you have any, then just think about the stories you tell your friends or your near and dear ones over dinner or maybe at a party, right? And that's what anecdotal comedy is all about. So, this is how you can be writing your own anecdotal comedy sets. And with that, let me also move ahead and give you one example here. Um, So before that, I had an icebreaker question, which is, I think there is a technical glitch here and it's not coming up here. So let me just um, ask that question out to all of my viewers. And the icebreaker question is, which is your most favorite plaything in the play area, right? So there are a lot of rides and playthings that you can be using in the play area, like maybe swings and seesaw or maybe a slider. So what is the one thing that is your favorite? Do let me know in the chat box. And I'll be waiting for some of the answers here. Also, of course, in the chat box, you can be writing to me about any thoughts that you have, anything that you would want to share with me, maybe feedback or suggestions for our episode out here. So the chat box is welcome for all of your comments. I would be eagerly waiting, and I'm all ears to have an interaction with my audience here, right? So do let me know in the chat box if you have any comments or any suggestions, anything basically that you would want to share with me, right? And apart from that, the icebreaker question was, what is the one favorite thing or the plaything in a play area that you would like to experience? Would it be a slider, a seesaw, or maybe a tunnel, or maybe a swing, sorry. So answers in the chat box, and Jennifer says swings. Okay, lovely. And we have Aditya gave me slider. That's nice. Seesaw is fun is the comment that I get here from Amit. Thanks a lot for all of these comments. And hello messages coming up here. Good evening to you too, Richa. Yes, so thanks a lot for all of your comments. And let's get going to our next segment, which is establishing the essential. So let's understand how we can write anecdotal comedy all by ourselves. For that, we have two definite elements. And these elements are, the first one is the opening, and of course the bits, right? So let's delve deeper into each of these two elements and understand in greater detail what all of that entails. And the first element that we have here, or the first thing that we really need to focus on while we are trying to write anecdotal comedy, is the opening. Now, this is not only with anecdotal comedy, but with all types of stand up comedy performances. Your opening needs to be really bang on, right? So, just like I always say this, just like when you pick up a book and you start reading it, the initial, few pages are going to determine whether you're going to finish that book in one go, or whether you're going to just leave it half baked, right? So why that happens is because all of us have different attention spans, and only if that opening is really impressive, we want to go ahead with reading the whole book, right? So that's the first impression that makes or breaks the performance as well. So your opening always needs to be impressive to the audience, and you should have that initial connect with your audience for them to be interested in your act, right? So now the main goal here while you're doing anecdotal comedy is finding the emotional journey, right? So every good story has an arc, and you begin one place, then you end up somewhere else. How do you feel at the beginning of your starting to recite that story, and how you feel at the fag end of, after completing that story, is what um, counts, right? So what are the different expectations that you have? Where do you find yourself at the end in terms of emotional state? Whether your jokes are making people laugh, that is one of the most important and crucial aspects. And what are the whatever expectations you had set in the starting, have they been met or are they shattered, right? So all of these things will, um, when you think of all of these things and come up with an explanation, come up with an understanding, then you're going to do that opening part really right. Yes. So your beginning and the end of your story arc need to be really impressive for your audiences to stay glued onto your performance, and for you to garner those uh, laugh in stitches. Yes. So that is the opening, or the first essential crucial element that you need to work upon while you're writing anecdotal comedy, because these are about your personal experiences, something that has happened with you, your experience. You're going to embellish it with more exaggeration so that it sounds funnier on stage, right? And all of this put together is going to make the opening, right? Now let us move into one example for the opening bit. um, MK Creator says, hi there. Hello. Thanks for joining the live. And the first example that I have here on my screen. So a lot of effort has gone into all of these slides where we try giving you examples of how anecdotal comedy can be done. And kudos to my team who writes the material there. Yes. So the first example that we have here in our opening is, just imagine this particular bit happening, or a comedian performing this bit in front of you, maybe, right? So when I was an intern in a district shop in Tumkur, which is a district in Karnataka, that's a state in India, I was grocery shopping for home. And you can maybe laugh aloud a bit. Yes. And these are all techniques that comedians use with their facial expressions, with the way that they behave while they are speaking. Yes. So I don't know why I get this tickle in my belly when I say Tumkur or Mini Amma. Just breaks my barrier. So the concept is, not everyone would be aware of the names that are kept in the state of Karnataka because of the language barrier. So you will have to establish it in the routine, and the setup is going to give name examples which end with the word Amma, right? So here we saw one name of the district, which was Tumkur, and we spoke about Mini Amma, the popular character in one of the movies, Shah Rukh Khan movies, right? If you are aware. So that was an example that we have where you are uh, setting up that particular name which ends with Amma in your routine, so that it makes a pattern, and then finally you can joke about it in the later segment, right? So this was about the opening. That's how you start, and we are going to explore the same example for our other different definite elements as well, so that you have an understanding of how this works, right? So after the opening, let's move to the second element that we are supposed to establish, which is the bits. Now, bits means nothing but small jokes that you plant into your act in a way that all of that gets connected towards the ending, and the audience really understands where you are going, right? So these are the bits or the small jokes that you have planted in your script. And now your story, whatever that personal experience was that you're going to talk about with your audience, after its beginning, it will have a moment when everything changes, right? So a good story often begins with a character either on the brink of changing or learning or evolving, maybe, but not yet sure how they will evolve, or a character which is completely oblivious to change. Therefore the audience gets gobsmacked by it, right? So these are the different small jokes that you will plant in your story, and by way of which you're going to introduce the story or the characters in a way that the beginning is definitely going to evolve and it's going to change after a moment, right? So let me give you another example here. Okay, we have Vilas Dhake here, and he is asking me what is the meaning of gobsmacked, right? So let me go ahead, go back to that previous slide here, and therefore the audience is gobsmacked by it means they are caught by surprise, and they are in a feeling of awe. What just happened? Yes, that kind of a feeling, because you set a pattern and then you broke it up by catching the audience off guard, right? You surprise them. So that's what gobsmacked means. And now that you have done this to the audience, we can also see one example of how this particular thing can be done um, by way of an act in front of the audience, right? So the first scenario that we saw was where we spoke about the district Tumkur and the character Miniyamma, right? Now just imagine that in your next act, after you have introduced that bit, then in your next connecting performance, you say that while a woman outside of the door kept shouting Mukamma, I thought she was calling a person, only to realize later that she was asking someone to push the door because her hands were full. So the now the concept is, when once you say that, now the concept is that once the audience have understood the circumstance and that the names that end with amma, then you can bring up the mukama line and allow the audience to also think that this is also a name, maybe, which ends with the word amma, right? But the punch here is, you will reveal later that mukama is not a name, but it is actually the meaning for the word push in the local language, right? So now what have you done? You have created a pattern by talking about different names which end with the word amma, but later on you have totally caught them by surprise by giving them a verb which is also ending with amma. Now the audience is going to think that you are actually talking about a name, but it is not so. It is actually the act of pushing a door, right? So that's how you can break that set pattern and gather the laughs for your audience, right? So these were some of the two essentials that we had in today's episode. And let me again move ahead with one instruction that we have. So you will have to understand that the audience and the joke that you are delivering, that can be only done if you have understood the background of the joke yourself, right? So you need to sound convincing yourself first. Only then you can convince the audience. That is one. And also the second thing is that don't make fun of something that can hurt another's feelings, because that is not right. Yes. So these are things that we need to keep in mind while we are doing stand-up comedy performances. And let's also see one of the concepts here for the instruction. So it's a simple anecdote of misunderstanding the word push in the Kannada language to a name, because many people have names that end with the word amma, like maybe, for example, Lakshamma, Rajamma, etc. Yes. So after this realization, the audience will feel silly as they fell for it, and it's a good time to ride on it by adding some tags. Yes. Now, tags, you can add more confusion and more names that are misleading, and therefore the act is going to be a little bit on the exaggerated side, but it's going to really turn into a uh, you know joke that's going to crack up all of your audiences. Yes. So that's what is knowing the concept here. And instruction 2 here is that you should always believe in what you say. Now, this is really important, and also we see that it is kind of like underrated. So you may think that good writing alone is enough, but actually, after you have written the joke, delivering it or delivering the act with apt expressions is equally important. Yes. Now, this can come, and you can accomplish this only by more and more practice, having more stage time to yourself. Just believe in what you say and what you do, because your confidence will lead your audiences in believing what you're delivering, right? So, first, you be confident with your script or with your comedy set and perform that with a confidence. Only then your audience is going to be convinced with your act, right? So, that's instruction number 2. And yes, thanks a lot for joining here. Wonderful is the comment that I get here from Jennifer. Thanks again for that. So, all that you see on the screen here, kudos to my writing team who give me material in and out every day. So yes, it is definitely a team effort, and I would like to pass on all of your good wishes and your kind words to the whole of my team. Yes, thanks a lot again. And let's now move ahead. We have a like here from Awad Albari. Thanks a lot. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name right. So please do pardon me. Sulekha Rani, thanks a lot for that like. And yes, let's move ahead to the next segment, which is a synonymous word. And the word is underrated, right? So underrated would have synonyms: understate, underestimate, and even undervalue. Yes. So when I say that you need to believe in your jokes, it is a crucial and important aspect, but of course always it is underrated, something that we really undervalue, right? So underrated was the first word in our synonymous segment. Try jotting down all of these words so that you can use them wherever appropriate: understate, underestimate, and undervalue. And for the word that my audience member here, Vilas Dhake, asked me, gobsmacked, that could have synonymous words, maybe astounded and even astonished or taken by surprise, right? So those are two words that I have here. And let me now quickly move ahead to the next segment, which is quiz time. Okay, so wonderful. Let's see who all give me correct answers to these quiz questions here. I have two questions for our quiz time today. The first one is, who is the founder of Microsoft? And this is something that all of us know, isn't it? Quickly in the chat box, answers. I am going to wait for just a couple of seconds. We all know this one. And yes, that's the correct answer. Of course, it is Bill Gates, right? The founder of Microsoft. And let's look at the second question. I don't know whether that's going to be as easy as this one. Here it is. So it says, during which year did World War I begin? Okay, so if you know your history lessons well, then you're going to give me correct answers. Okay, let me see what answers I get here. Bill Gates is the correct answer. All of you giving me that. 1914 is the answer that I get. Thanks for that. Vilas, yes, that's sorry, that was Vikas here. Okay. So thanks again, Vikas. 1914 is the correct answer. Purnima also giving me the correct answer. Yes. So all of us know our history lessons well, right? Great. The year 1914, the year when World War I began, right? And with that, let's move ahead to some expert tips in establishing the essentials. And the first expert tip that I have here is that, when we talk about anecdotal comedy as if we are saying stories to the audience, our personal stories, right? So when we tell regular stories to the audience, there may or may not be laughs along the way, right? The storyteller's story can succeed on the merits of drama and suspense with or without laughter, isn't it? But any form of stand up comedy, the comedian employs certain techniques which, are really a challenge, and it is a necessity to serve up frequent laughs, right? Now that's why people go to comedy clubs. So the way that comedians are going to say their stories should definitely be in a way that it incites humor and it is funny for the audiences. It should tickle their funny bone, right? So that's the first trick here. It's not a regular story that we are talking about. It is something that we are saying with the intention of making our public laugh, right? So it definitely has to be rib tickling. And the second expert tip is that most stories that we see, they are structured chronologically. That means that they always have a sequence of events. So we always teach our children in PlanetSpark also that stories will always have a structure. They need to have a sequence of events. So there always needs to be a beginning, then the middle, and then finally the ending, right? And to spice it all up, you will have certain elements going in between. Yes. But now, while we are talking about stand up comedy, all of these rules are going to go topsy turvy, because here in stand up comedy, the comedians, they organize the story by way of subject. So there is going to be a first subject, and then there are going to be laugh lines tied to that particular subject. After that, they move on to the second subject and tie up the laugh lines to that particular subject next. So that's how transforming a funny story into a stand-up comedy material is essentially involves formatting the story in this particular way. We are not going to follow the structure that we follow while saying or retelling stories, right? So these are some expert tips that I have for my audiences here. Pooja Piyush Salwan, Sulekha Rani, Awad Albari, thanks a lot for all of your likes. It really feels special, and I'm so glad that all of you are liking the material that we have here. And definitely, I'm really glad that you're also taking time out to understand and to self learn all about stand up comedy, right? So let's move ahead with our next segment. We have an EDM come up next. So, Decipher, the EDM is the name of the segment that we have next. And EDMs, let me tell you again, are phrases which have a hidden meaning. So, today, the idiom that we have here is to make a laughing stock of someone or something. So, what it would mean is that you ridicule or mock someone to the extent that it becomes a laughing material, right? So that is the meaning of this particular idiom, to make a laughing stock of someone. And the way that we can be using it in a sentence is, I knew I was the laughing stock of my high school reunion with my lime green suit, but I didn't care, right? So they already know that their lime green suit is gaining all the attention there, but of course they did not care. And that is what made them, the green suit was what made them the laughing stock, isn't it? So to make fun of or ridicule something or someone, that is what that idiom means. And you can jot that down, use it wherever appropriate. Idioms are really impressive ways of communication, and putting your point across to your audience, whosoever it is, right? So jot that idiom down, understand the meaning, and try using it wherever apt, right? Now let me move ahead to the next segment, which is another icebreaker question. And the question is, which is your favorite shoe brand? Okay, so quickly in the chat box, what is the one brand of a pair of shoes that you would like to wear? Maybe based on comfort or whatever is your preferable choice. Do let me know the name of the brand in the chat box. So some quick answers, expecting some quick answers here. Okay, Reebok is the name that I get there. Thanks for that. Okay, and Anshul says Skechers. That's nice. Total comfort. Wow, yes. We have Skechers and Reebok come up there. Amit is giving me a think emoji, so I think he's thinking the name of the brand, right? Bubblegum is another name that I get there. Okay. What else? So you can keep writing to me whenever you recollect the name, maybe. That's not a problem at all. And with that, let me now move ahead to the next segment. It is all about plotting the plot. So, the three important elements that is going to really make your stand up comedy act engaging. So, let me show you all the three elements. We have the characters, what is the situation that you're going to portray, then the setting. Also, the setting would be the timeline, or maybe the external environment that you're going to portray, a vivid description maybe by your talk that you're going to give to your audience, and what are they going to picturize in their mind. That's what the setting is all about. And I have another comment here from Pooja, and she says hush puppies. Wow, that's lovely. Thanks a lot for your response, Pooja. And yes, so let's move ahead and understand the nuances of each of these elements here. First one is the characters. So we definitely have to be quick and choosy about our characters, and there has to be something comic about these characters that we introduce into our stand-up comedy act, right? So the characters could have a silly banter going amongst them, or maybe they are really funny. Now, if I come to think about it, think of Charlie Chaplin, or maybe Rowan Atkinson, that is Mr. Bean, and even while I'm taking that name out there, we have a smile on our faces, right? So that's how comedy needs to be. You need to choose the characters really well. They need to have some kind of a funny element in them, and try, like in the episode of today, we had an example of some names that we had down south India, which really brought into that humor, right? So maybe you can try drawing a portrait of a South Indian lady, and who is really funny and has some facial expressions going, by which way the audience is going to be incited into that laughter, right? So characters are really essential. You need to think them through. Now, the second element is the situation or the conflict. So describe about these conflicts, no matter how gray they sound, project them funnily. You can talk about the confusion between South Indian words and the name of people all ending with amma. That would be the situation that you're going ahead with in one of the examples that I showed you for today. Now, the third element would be the setting. So again, setting of your comedy act needs to be such that it is really lively. Avoid the dark places, and always remember that there has to be something in your setting which is going to introduce humor into your act, right? So for example, a coconut falling from the tree, and go, hitting into that South Indian lady's porch, or try and be creative, and showcase something else regarding South India, which is a daily routine there possibly. But since we have these names going, we might have a setting about that particular place, right? So all of this is going to connect the audience to that single theme, and it's going to make your plot also colorful, right? So these are the various ways in which you can link up all of your small bits into your comedy act. And now that we have seen the plotting the plot, engaging elements, let's now move ahead to the next idiom that we have for today, which is to shout oneself silly. So let's look at an example sentence here. Once he had learned he won the first place, he shouted himself silly for 45 minutes straight. So that's the example of a sentence that we have here, right? But the meaning for this, to shout oneself silly, would mean, as you can understand from that statement itself, it means to shout until one can't shout anymore, right? So being really exaggerated with their voice, that's what it means to shout oneself silly. And that sentence there aptly introduces that idiom, to all of us here, right? So jot that idiom down again, and you can use that in your creative writing, whatever you do for your school, or maybe even while you're conversing with friends and family members, you can use that idiom, and it's again really going to be forming an impression, right? So these were the decipher, the idioms for today. And let me now move ahead to the next segment, which is expert tips and tricks. Again, two of the expert tips that I would again give to my audience here is, sometimes it's also possible that uh, to create an anecdotal stand-up comedy successfully, the events are really um, wanting to be made up. So maybe you do not have any personal experience which is funny, right? So if that happens, think of what makes these pieces work, and try creating a funny anecdotal stand up, right? So the story should feel genuine, and it should fit the comedian's persona. So you're going to write something which the audience can really get a hand of, or maybe can really believe, right? And this is one way of writing anecdotal comedy. If you can't think of any personal experience, any personal anecdote or a silly thing that has happened with you, then you can also take inspiration from things that have happened with peers and with friends or classmates that you know of. Or else you can make up the event, but make it up in such a way that you can convince that particular situation to your audience, right? So this was the first expert tip. The second one that we have is, in good anecdotal stand up, the characters in the story are recognizable and their behavior is believable. Even if the premise of the story is fanciful or exaggerated, audiences laugh when the story matches up with the personality of the comedian telling the story, right? So that's again something that we need to understand here for plotting the plot, and one of the expert tips. So make it believable, make it easily understandable for your audience. Of course, it can be a little bit fanciful and exaggerated, but it definitely needs to be something that the audience can believe in, right? Now, with all of these expert tips and the examples and the various plotting the plot pointers, and also the essentials that we spoke about in today's episode, I hope that you have a wealth of information about how you can be writing anecdotal comedy, and also how you can be performing in front of an audience, right? So if you have any comments, any questions for me, do go ahead and post them in the chat box. I would be really glad to answer them to the best of my capacity. With that, we are coming to the end of our episode. So the last segment that we have for today is locate the words. And here I show you a letter maze. What you need to do is try finding out some of the words that are hidden in this letter maze. They could be written horizontally, vertically, or even diagonally. And all the words are from today's episode. Yes. So it's going to be really easy if you have been hearing me out to find all of the words hidden. There are 4 words for today, and I'm going to give you only 1 minute. Quickly give me the words in the chat box. I can, for one, see most of the words already. I can make them out, and you need to have an eagle's vision to be doing this really quick. Yes. Okay, so the first word that I have here is tumkur, and that is correct. That was the place that we had in one of our examples. Laugh is also right. Thanks for that, Anandi, giving me that answer there. Comic, that is also correct. So we have 3 words already. Quick job. That was really wonderful. Awesome. And the last one to go, we got tumkur, laugh, and comic, right? Now, the last one to go, let me reveal the answers here. The first one was tumkur, and the second one is laugh. We already have that in the chat box. Persona is the one word that my audience missed. And here is the 4th word, which is comic, right? So, thanks again. It was really wonderful to have all of those words listed quickly in the chat box. Persona is right, Pooja. That's nice. Um, you are missing one letter. It's not person, but it's persona. And yes, thanks again for attempting to answer all of those questions. And let's move ahead into our next segment, which is At a Glance, where I'm going to give you a quick roundup of all that we learned in today's anecdotal comedy episode, right? So we saw the plot points were choosing our characters wisely, and the setting needs to be really lively. Also, the situation needs to be something which garners the laughs, right? So these were the plot building pointers. And then for the essential points, we had the opening and the bits and the instructions, right? So opening would have to be really impressive for your audiences to get glued onto your performance. And the various small bits, that is the jokes that you plant into your script, they have to be really thought of, and focus on all of these small jokes, have a call of reference, connect them with each other. Sorry. Pardon me. So yes, where was I? I was telling you about these essential points. So of course, the opening needs to be impressive, and the small jokes that you have in your um, comedy routine, they all need to be connected. And maybe you can have a call of reference with the initial bit that you performed, and that's how you connect each of these parts together to make the audience to make them understand what the joke was all about, and also to join the dots, right? So these were the things that we saw in today's episode. And for the project work, I would definitely encourage all of you to maybe try writing a anecdotal comedy script, and take it from me, once you put pen to paper and you try thinking about this, you're definitely going to come across with some funny incidents that have happened to you, or maybe to any of your family members, and that's how you can maybe um, put some other embellishments into that personal anecdote and extend it, right? So try writing one of the comedy scripts for anecdotal comedy today. And also, you can try performing that in front of a mirror, or maybe in front of your near and dear ones, right? So that's the project work that we have for all of our young budding stand-up comedians. And for tomorrow, let me tell you, I would come live again at 6 p.m. India time with day two of anecdotal comedy. So we will be exploring more examples, more ideas, and you will have some more expert tips and tricks that is going to really work for anecdotal comedy with your audiences, right? So I hope you had fun in today's episode, just like the way I had in bringing out this episode to you. Yes, you may want to share all of your comments with me in the chat box. I will definitely go back, look into all of your messages, and connect with you on all your messages tomorrow in the live, right? So, yes, it's time now to say bye. I am Sapna Mahadevan signing out for today. Do take good care of yourselves. Have a happy time and keep smiling. Bye bye.